Oxnard Engine 2, stand by for emergency traffic.
Go ahead, Engine 2.
Oxnard Engine 2, a subject not breathing at 454, 454 South J. John. Front car is I-4, cross street is Woolley Road. Subject's a 42-year-old male. Information, he has a history of heart problems. Emergency medical dispatch in progress. Ambulance responding.
Oxnard Engine 2 responding.
Engine 2 responding. Oxnard Engine 1, Squad 1 injury accident. Victoria Avenue and Woolley Road. Run card is H3. 3 calls received. 1 RP device and the vehicle's overturned with 2 trapped victims. PD ambulance responding.
Oxnard Engine 1 responding. Would you use point 1 at 10 or that's call?
Engine 1 responding. Captain 110.
Oxnard Squad responding.
Squad 1 responding.
Welcome to Fireline. I'm your host, Richard Hodge. Tonight's show, we're going to call it The New Beginning. Haz Mat. My guest tonight, I'll introduce you in a second. You always hear me talk about this. We're going to talk about recycling one more time. Before I get the recycling containers out, these, in cooperation with the federal government, are free at any of Oxnard's 6 fire stations. Come in, use them, fill them up, take them into the local recycling center. They'll empty them out for you, and you can use them again. Now to my guest, Don Hudson, fire engineer, City of Oxnard Fire Department.
Glad to be here, Richard.
Glad to meet you.
Always a pleasure.
Oh, yeah, he says that. You know what happened? I always catch Don on the last minute and say, hey, Don, boy, I'm hurt. I need somebody on the show. And Don shows up. A real problem we have, a problem that costs the taxpayers a lot of money in the City of Oxnard, is recycling of oil. Not that it costs them when they recycle it, but when they don't. Let's picture quart of oil, a gallon of oil, sitting in an alley. You tell me what the City of Oxnard Fire Department's response is to that.
What happens, Richard, is someone calls in, and rightfully so, they're concerned, but what is this material that's been left on their street or in their gutter or in their alley by their trash cans or whatever. And they're quite rightly concerned about what it is. It may be waste oil, which is carcinogenic in itself, or potentially carcinogenic in itself, or it may be something unexpected and worse. So they call the city, and either they call 911 or they call the city business line, and one way or another a response is generated that the fire department goes out to see what this is. And it happens frequently in Oxnard, and I'm sure it happens other places too, but Oxnard seems particularly prone to it, that people do leave their waste oil after they've changed oil in their cars, and they just leave it places. Sometimes it gets dumped down storm drains, which drain into the environment in environmentally sensitive wetland areas, and sometimes it's dumped down vault covers or manhole covers. You know, people pop open a manhole and dump it down a convenient hole in the street. But more frequently it's left in unmarked containers, and it's an unknown, and it's out where children can play around it or get it into it or get it on themselves, and it's really a problem. So what we do is we go out and try to figure out what the material is, and frequently there'll be things, clues left with it, like old oil filters or something that kind of give us a clue that yes, this is used motor oil, which isn't doesn't generate a level of a hazardous materials response that an unknown release would, but still eats up resources and time from the fire department as well as the street department, and does represent a carcinogenic material. Motor oil itself isn't bad, but used motor oil, because of the products of combustion of gasoline, mixing with the motor oil does create a potential carcinogen.
But before you start testing this, you don't know what level has this. You really think, okay, well, there's a oil filter over there, and we got 4 gallons of stuff that looks like oil, but you still can't take the chance of saying, well, that's oil without some kind of test, right?
That's right. We have to we have to determine what the risks are, and we're required going into any of these sorts of situations to use various monitors to gauge for various risks. One of the hazards that can be involved with an unknown is a flammable vapor hazard, where you could be walking into a hazardous atmosphere, and we need a monitor for that with expensive monitoring equipment to determine, to make sure that if there is no hazard, or if there is a hazard with flammable vapors, that we deal with it in a safe manner.
Well, these rules and protections that we take, precautions that we take to protect ourselves, they didn't come about just because we want to look good doing this. They come about because someplace along the line, people have actually been hurt doing this. And you have to protect your respiratory tract, your breathing. You have to protect your breathing.
That's right.
You have to protect your body somehow. And we wear eye protection. And,
right.
But this is just something that looks like oil.
Yeah. Just use motor oil, maybe.
Maybe.
Yeah, and that's always the kicker, is the maybe. Once we've determined that we don't have a hazard away from the material, we're checking for flammable vapors, and if we can't rule it out, we have to also check for radioactivity. We're required to, because there are various processes that might create waste that would have a radioactive hazard to it.
Well, we're not really immune to it here in Ventura County, because we got major military bases here.
Right.
You have what else? X-ray places?
Yeah, I mean medical. There's medical materials that are used in medicine that are radioactive and create radioactive waste. Also industrial uses, X-raying pipe joints and welds and so forth. There are a lot of potential sources of radioactive waste. So,
well, we were sitting here up until they closed down. We didn't know that they made triggers for nuclear weapons over here off of Woolley Road.
Shh, that's a secret.
It's probably still a secret, but they told us they did that. Then they closed down.
Yeah. So until you can rule these things out, you have to treat every unknown with a lot of respect. And so don't be involved. If you see an unknown material that has been left in your neighborhood, you don't want to be involved in it directly, but by all means, call the fire department. We'll come out and we'll determine a level of hazard, and we'll see what we can do about getting it taken care of.
Well, there's all kinds of hidden things in those bottles. Pool acids.
That's right.
I mean, things that can be, will kill you.
Yeah.
Not only be harmful to you, but they'll kill you.
Yeah. And harmful to the environment. Of course, our first concern is protection of human life and the quality of human life, and then after that, the environment. But we are concerned about the environment too. We don't want these things released into the environment, because that directly or indirectly will affect the quality of our lives. And,
kids get into anything.
Oh yeah. Of course, I never did when I was a kid.
No.
But yeah, the potential for children to get into a lot of these materials that have been abandoned is very great, and it's very real, and it's a big hazard.
So normal response.
Normal response, you're going to get probably the engine company that's first due in that area, and they'll make an initial determination on how they want to proceed, whether there are enough indications that they can treat it like motor oil, or if there are not some real solid clues that say, yeah, this is probably just used motor oil, toxic in itself, but just that level of hazard. Then they'll also call in the hazardous materials team. And we'll bring our hazardous materials truck and the ladder truck and the engine, because we don't have personnel dedicated strictly to hazardous materials response. We cross-man, so the personnel from Station 1 will come with the hazardous materials equipment in addition to our engine and our ladder truck, which consequently has been taken away from whatever other duties we were conducting at that point in time.
Done. Going to stop it here. We're going to break, but we'll be right back.
got time for fun, sun, and danger. Remember, only refuel your lawnmower when the engine is off and cool. When barbecuing, use only charcoal lighter fluid. Once the coals have been lit, never add more fuel to the fire. Remember that temperatures inside a parked car can be dangerously hot. Always test plastic or leather seats before placing a child into the car. And make sure to check the metal parts of the seatbelt before fastening. It's always a good idea to wear sandals or foot coverings. You can severely burn your feet on the hot sand or tarred pavement. When spending time in the sun, use a lotion with sunscreen. And make sure to follow the instructions on the label.
Whether it's a minor sunburn or a major injury, careless accidents can ruin summer fun. Hi, I'm Mike O'Leary with Oxnard Firefighters, hoping you will enjoy summer heat without getting burned.
Welcome back to the Firehouse. I'm here with engineer Don Hudson, hazmat specialist. Don, where were we?
We were talking about the resources that can be consumed by just motor oil abandoned in the street.
I knew you'd remember that because I did. Go ahead.
Okay, we were talking about what could happen in a situation where there's unknown, where you have the first-in engine company who is keeping the scene safe, and they've called in the hazmat team, which consists of our ladder truck and engine company combined, which is known as Light Force One. And we will come with the hazardous materials truck. And at that point, you've taken a sizable percentage of the fire department out of service to deal with used motor oil in the street. And
almost 20%.
yeah, the numbers escape.
Yeah, I was just counting guys right now. It's about 20%.
Yeah, the 22 on duty, that represents 5 and 3, 8. So yeah,
Probably
yeah, a third.
A third.
A third or more of the on-duty response.
See,
resource.
I knew you'd do that too. I should have said
That's what
33 or
engineers do. We
30%.
calculate things. Okay. If, however, the initial engine company determines that this is, in all likelihood, strictly used motor oil, they will go to a level of protection and response that they will handle on themselves. They'll secure the scene, make sure no one is going to get into it and track it any further. Then they'll go in with protection. They'll be wearing their firefighter turnout clothes and also probably a breathing apparatus and to protect them. And then they'll use one of these Chlor-Detect kits. And these are a little chemistry kit that's designed to, we take a sample of the oil, or suspected motor oil, and we run it through the test tubes and the chemicals that are provided in the kit. And what they do is they give us an indication of whether this is waste oil or waste oil that's contaminated with chlorine primarily, because certain chlorinated solvents can't be disposed of as though they were just waste oil. They have to be treated differently because of the potential for chlorobenzene products that could be precursors to dioxin, which, if anyone remembers the some of the things that occurred in the 70s and 80s, dioxin contamination.
Love Canal.
Yeah.
Love Canal was one of the big ones.
Yeah, and the dioxin is one of the big actors in all these time speeds, Missouri, and some of the other very notorious hazardous materials incidents that hopefully we've put behind us with more responsible actions by the public, that these things won't be happening again.
This kit, this will tell you if it's motor oil.
This will tell us if the motor oil is not contaminated with chlorobenzene products.
Okay, if you had motor oil, and somebody said, well, I got the motor oil here, so I might as well pour the antifreeze in with the motor oil, then what do you got?
Then you have a nice mixture. Antifreeze, of course, is water-based and alcohol-based, and it won't mix with the motor oil, so now you have a mixture, and you can't just dump that in with the waste oil either. So now you have a hazardous waste that has to be dealt with separately than the very convenient recycling waste stream.
If you guys are going to do this, don't mix antifreeze and oil together. it's harder to recycle.
That's right. You know, I like to work on my own cars. I'm sure you
I
do
do
too,
too.
Richard. There's something firefighter-ish about doing your own thing.
It's true, it's true.
We just like being dirty, I guess. But I change my own motor oil, but I recycle it. And I change my antifreeze, but I recycle it. And I take it to one of the recycling centers that are listed. And it's very easy. It's cleaner. I don't have a mess on the ground when I'm done. It's can't say enough good things about
These
it.
containers are great.
Yeah,
You
they're
can do
great.
you can do antifreeze in them. You do antifreeze in them.
Yeah.
Make sure you tell them it's antifreeze. But you pull the little plugs out, and if it sits there for 2 or 3 hours, you don't even have to wipe this thing because it's clean.
That's right. And when you're done, you're done. It's your work area is clean. You haven't messed up your driveway, dumping stuff, trying to slide a pan over and having it run over the place. And you know, it's just better for your home environment as well as for the environment in general.
Wait a minute. These things are great. These things are great, and they're free. They're free. How many things can this good can be free? But this is free. You can't. You can beat them up. It's hard to break them. We broke them though. It's hard to break them, but they're free. You'll get one.
That's right. Just come to any of the Oxnard fire stations, and they're free to all the residents of Oxnard to help make Oxnard a better place to live, and that's what we're here for.
This here, Chlortex kit. This is probably the cheapest, smallest item that's involved in
And the hazardous materials response. And
it's not cheap.
And it's not cheap. They're run upwards of $20 a kit. And you can imagine someone does an oil change for save a few bucks in oil, and we expend a $20 kit plus the time and resources of the fire department determining that this stuff is strictly motor oil. And at that point, we call a street department out, and they come and pick it up and take it to their hazardous materials disposal station, where every 90 days the city pays an expensive contractor to come and dispose of all the hazardous materials the city's collected.
So this thing just keeps snowballing. It just keeps going.
This becomes a big impact in the taxpayer's budget.
Over, you know, probably 4 to 6 quarts of oil.
That's right. And it's so easy to do it right.
Yeah, I know, it is.
Yeah,
It's
really is.
needed. You know, Jay Duncan pushes these things,
Mm-hmm.
but we have more of a reason than a lot of people do in recycling, because we know how much money it costs just to go on a gallon of oil.
Yeah.
And then the hazmat guys, you're a hazmat guy. You're a haz tech specialist?
Specialist. That's
A specialist.
7 weeks of intensive training on top of basic firefighter training, and it's that's a major expense in itself. The fire department is committed to maintaining a minimum of 3 technicians, specialists on duty each shift to be able to respond to hazardous materials incidents.
Because, you know, the size of our department,
That's right.
we can't afford to have a fully staffed hazmat team all the time.
That's right. We don't have people that do just hazmat. We're firefighters, and we do all the things firefighters do: emergency medical responses, accidents. We even go to plane crashes.
Plane crashes?
And an occasional structure fire.
I'm gonna have to interrupt you, Don. Hey, we're gonna break, but we're right back just a minute with my guest.
Every family should be prepared in the event of a fire in their house.
Troops?
This means making sure all the family members know how to exit the house and under different situations when the smoke alarm sounds. How to check a closed door for heat before opening it. Making sure everyone knows how to stay as low to the floor as possible when there's smoke in the house. If you have a 2-story house, you should have an escape ladder and know how to use it. And remember, every good escape plan should include a meeting place a safe distance away from the house.
Planning your escape in case of fire doesn't have to be a military drill. Hi, I'm Mike O'Leary with Oxnard Firefighters, urging you and your family to develop an effective escape plan. Be smart and safe. Don't get caught with no way out.
Welcome back to the Firehouse. I'm here with Don Hudson. Don, okay, we just finished oil. We've just finished the cost of oil.
Right.
And we're trying to...
We were talking about how, well, what level of response and the people that we have on duty. We maintain at least 3 firefighters that are trained as hazardous materials technicians or specialists.
Okay.
Now, give you an idea.
The overall picture for Ventura County.
Yeah.
Where do we fit into this?
Okay, we have a new a regional response team that includes 5 hazmat teams within Ventura County. Now, that's Oxnard, Ventura City Fire Department, Ventura County Fire Department, Point Magoo, and CBC fire departments from the Navy. Each have a hazardous materials team. And these 5 teams together make up the Ventura County Regional Response Team. And 3 guys, as you may well imagine, is not enough to handle a hazardous materials incident beyond the motor oil stage. There's a lot that's involved. Just to give you a brief idea, I brought in some of the tools that we would use to monitor when we're making an entry into a release of an unknown product. And 2 of the things that we have to monitor when we're going into an unknown release is flammability and radiation. And the reason is because these things can be very hazardous at a distance, a good distance away from the release itself.
But don't you guys wear fireproof clothes?
Oh yeah, but how fireproof is fireproof? You wear fire turnouts, but you don't want to be walking through walls of flame.
No, I don't.
And there's nothing we can wear that will protect us from radiation exposure. So, well, that's a qualified. There are 3 basic types of radiation: alpha, gamma, alpha, beta, and gamma. And gamma is radiation that travels like light does, and we have no protection against that other than knowing that it's there. So on an unknown situation, we're going to be using radiation and combustible gas detectors to determine if these risks are there. And if they're there, we're going to have to deal with them before we actually deal with mitigating whatever the release itself is.
Okay, wait a minute. Now this does 3 different kinds of radiation. Mm-hmm. And which is the worst one?
This actually gets the 2 worst ones. The least offensive is alpha because it's particles that don't travel far. A piece of paper will usually stop alpha radiation. It's large particles that don't have a lot of momentum to them, if you will.
Kind of weak stuff.
Yeah. Then you have beta radiation, which is electron-sized particles that will be stopped by the various kinds of insulating materials. And then you have gamma radiation, which travels like light or like electricity in the electromagnetic spectrum. And that kind of radiation we don't have any protection from. So all these kind of radiation can get, well, beta and alpha radiation can be on dust and things, and you would inhale that and it would become a real hazard to you. So of course you're going to be wearing breathing apparatus to protect your respiratory system. Well, I'm getting pretty deep into this.
And this, how many types of gases does this detect?
Yeah. This will detect flammable mixtures in the atmosphere. It will detect oxygen-deficient atmospheres or oxygen-rich atmospheres. It will also detect carbon monoxide and hydrogen sulfide, which are both very toxic gases.
Very toxic gases.
So this is an expensive instrument. It's upwards of $3,000 instrument. And
that's expensive.
Yeah, we sort of guard this one very carefully. And
I was wondering why you wouldn't let us use it out of Station 6.
Yeah, well, we require a higher level. No, I won't get into
okay.
that. But this is a very good instrument. We used to use 2 or 3 different instruments to do what this one instrument does, and we're real pleased with its performance so far. We've had it about 6 months, and we've used it a number of times already. And it's real quick. You just turn it on. It stabilizes itself, checks itself out, and then away you go to monitor your situation. So as you might imagine, having an entry team, a rescue team, and a decontamination team set up is going to require more than the amount of technicians that we have on duty in a given time. So we're going to be dealing with having our regional response, which is, the initial level of regional response is two teams. So that brings a minimum of 6 technicians and specialists to the scene. And then the next level, the next increment of response is 2 additional teams. And then beyond that, if we need the 5th team, we need them. And if we need resources from outside Ventura County, we'll call for that too. But you can see hazardous materials becomes a very time-consuming and expensive response.
It's slow.
It's very slow, but very necessary.
Because it's necessary.
Yeah.
And it takes a lot of people.
Yes, it does. It takes a lot of people doing a lot of different things to protect, of course, our main goal is to protect human life, our own as well as people in the area, and the environment too.
We're working with hazmat. There's no such thing as a normal hazmat response.
No, they're all different. They're all different. You can have an ammonia release where you have ammonia gas, which is acutely toxic material because it attacks your respiratory system very quickly. Nice things about ammonia is you can smell it at very low levels and you won't want to stay around, so you'll probably leave the area if you can.
We've got a lot of it in the city of Oxnard.
That's
got to
right.
stop you. Appreciate you coming on this show. We're going to have to finish this show. We'll do it again here this year sometime, and we'll bring some more gear on for the folks at home to see. Don, thanks a million. You're
Appreciate
great.
being here,
You're
Richard.
Great. Remember, Oxnard Firefighter Television is Fireline. Well, I must mess that one up. You never know. You're sitting here talking to Donna. I had a really good time. I want to thank everybody out there. I'd like to thank all the people that watch the show. My cameraman, Nils Jorgensen, the director, Ron Brubaker, sound out there is Jim Mullins. And remember, be good to yourself, be good to your neighbors, be fire safe, and tune in again next week. Thanks.
Quad 6, stand by for emergency traffic.
Go ahead for engine 6.
Oxnard Engine 6, Quad 6, vessel aground in the surf. Manley Beach Road at Whitecap Street. Run card is J4. Switch to the Coast Guard frequency Alpha 21. PD ambulance responding information. Call came through the Coast Guard.
Engine 6 copy, engine 6 responding, switching to Coast Guard frequency. Squad 6 responding, switching to Coast Guard frequency.
Squad 6 responding. Oxnard Engine 1, Engine 5, Squad 1, Truck 1, Battalion 2. Structure fire at 10156, 10156, C. Charles Street. Cross Street is 3rd Street, run card is B4. RP's advising there's a 2-story residence with smoke showing.
Oxnard